Welcome to the 359th Harvard Commencement. I'm Jim Anderson in the Department of Chemistry, Earth and Planetary Sciences, and the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, and I'm here with my treasured colleague Diana Eck.
So good to be here.
Who's in the Department of Comparative Religion and Indian Studies. And Diana, we stand above 30,000 friends and family of 7,100 graduates.
It is
today.
Just amazing to be here in the Tercentenary Theater in between the steps of Widener and the steps of the Memorial Church. But actually, this Tercentenary Theater now extends rather considerably beyond as well, all the way back onto the top of Houghton Library and Pusey Library and all the way back from the seats next to Boylston Hall. But welcome to all of you who are there watching this on the big screen this morning. If you're at home or in one of the common rooms, get a cup of coffee and pull up a chair. You've got the best seats in the house for this Harvard commencement. And if you're watching on one of those jumbo screens, you're lucky. Then you can see it in person and on a screen as well. They've done everything they can to accommodate this huge crowd.
That's right, and the sun
it's very exciting.
Sun just broke out and hits the colors of all of these medieval garbs. Reminds us that Harvard is built on 1,000 years of development in education from Europe, from the Middle East, from Asia. And this is a time of the year where we celebrate all the schools of Harvard University, and it's a great pleasure to see you. We rarely see each other through the year, but this is a great convocation, and we look forward to it.
Well, and Jim Anderson is the Weld Professor of Atmospheric Chemistry. I think he does something, I'm not sure, a little sort of mumbo-jumbo at this time of year to make sure that it doesn't rain. And we did have a pretty good rain shower last night, but I think the sun is breaking forth here. It's a great academic festival, and you can hear the music in the background. There's John Harvard, where the procession of the president will come through before very long. The lead houses will make their way into the yard and form a processional path for the president's procession and for the faculty.
And getting 30,000 people into the Tercentenary Theater is a logistical nightmare, except that it's practiced every year. So all the details are reviewed, and as they come by the Harvard statue of John Harvard, who was not the founder, but arrived in 1637, just a year after the university, the college was founded. He lived only 18 months, interestingly. He died of tuberculosis, but left half of his wealth and 400 volumes to the new college, and it was named after him. So his legacy projects all the way through to today.
And even today, you see visitors day on day who touch that toe of John Harvard, imagining that it will give them good luck academically. There you see the divinity graduates who have affixed little halos to their, I'm not sure about how they're all deserving, but little halos to their mortar boards. Everybody in the various graduating classes has some sort of insignia that they brought with them. The law students who are seated right in front of us have gavels. There's a fairly large toothbrush that is attached to the marshal of the School of Dental Medicine. And now you see the procession from the Kennedy School of Government entering in through the gates of Sieber Hall into this great space. You're really right. This is the one time that we see what it is that Harvard University means. Throughout most of the year, we have no idea of all of these schools that are stretched across Boston area. We never really see ourselves in one place. And here, Harvard University gathers and enacts its ancient rituals in one place.
The remarkable thing about a graduation is that there's joy, of course, in the passage through school, the accomplishments associated with it, but there's also the passage of an important chapter in all of these graduates' lives, and the balance between the departure of friends and the community balanced against these great opportunities. You can see that the joy wins out. This is an electric theater here, great excitement, very proud parents, and it's a spectacle, particularly today, because these graduates face a very different world, a world of great opportunity, but also one of far greater risk.
Yeah, it's true. And when you see them coming in their various robes, some of them you'll notice are in bright red or crimson robes, and those are the PhD graduates. They are getting a doctorate in one or another, and they will, in fact, be the first to be awarded their degrees, the Doctor of Philosophy today.
And the undergraduates are, of course, graduates of Harvard College. Harvard College is really the original component of what's now Harvard University. So we open with the PhDs, we close with the undergraduate degrees, and those are the bookends that really mark the boundaries of the university's intellectual endeavor.
The President's procession is now beginning. You saw President Drew Faust passing the statue of John Harvard just a few minutes ago, led by the University Marshal, Jackie O'Neill. And they will make their way around the corner of University Hall and down the central processional aisle and onto the stage. These are the overseers in their top hats, members of the corporation and members of the Reverend and Honorable Board of Overseers.
And the corporation was formed on October 28, 1636. It marked the initiation of Harvard College, and it's the oldest corporation in the Western Hemisphere.
And you will see the members of the corporation seated on either side of President Drew Faust on the stage under this great tented canopy of the Tercentenary Theater.
And the deans, of course, comprise a good part of the presidential procession. And, of course, they have done a magnificent job of steering Harvard through difficult times and into a new era, new development in course structures, new research centers, a tremendously vital array of different studies. And, of course, with the increasing opportunity and risk, it becomes far more important what the students choose to take, and on the other hand, it becomes far more important from the faculty point of view to very carefully construct courses that are modern, linked, and potent for these students after they finish.
We've just seen that whole procession of the deans of the various schools pass by. They're all marching together, and they will be introduced one by one to introduce their graduates to the president of the university. There you see that processional aisle that is formed by the initiands, so to speak, those undergraduates who are entering the company of educated men and women today. And pretty soon you're going to be seeing there's Margaret Marshall, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Paul Buttenwieser, who is receiving a Harvard medal this afternoon, some of the clergy of Harvard and surrounding churches. And you'll see the candidates for honorary degrees. You might even recognize one or two of them.
And the shot you just saw prior to this one looked across Harvard Yard at the location of the original building that was constructed in 1637. It's about 100 yards from Diana and from me. And we sit stage left in front of Memorial Hall looking across all of these graduates toward Widener Library, which was constructed in 1915 and commemorates a student that went down on the Titanic.
I think we're just about to see the formation of the Summa candidates who are at the very head of that processional aisle. Some of the dignitaries of the government. I don't believe I think the mayor of Cambridge is here today, and of course the sheriff of Middlesex County.
The sheriff is here because while this looks like a well-organized event, in the early days, in the Puritan years, it was a week of wild celebration primarily out of control and actually required the sheriff to be here. And as we'll see, even today the sheriff calls this entire ensemble to order, demands order, and as we will see, he is rather theatrical, Diana.
Oh, yes. He loves the job. And this is, of course, the faculty who are following in the president's procession. They will be greeted by students all the way along the way in the many colored plumage that is so distinctive of academic garb.
Each one representing a different college and university.
The blues from Yale, of course, the black with great orange stripes from the Tigers of Princeton.
Yeah.
We have some interviews lined up today, a graduate of the law school and several undergraduates in a whole variety of fields who will be joining us to talk a little bit. There's Skip Gates and other members of the faculty. They're not exactly processing. They could be a little more orderly, but that's the way it is with faculty. They stop to greet students along the way.
So the first Harvard commencement was 1642. There were 9 graduates. Harvard now has 300,000 living graduates extending across 150 countries. And so this is really a new era.
Here you see the sheriff of Middlesex County and the marshal of the university, Jackie O'Neill, arriving at the stage of the Tercentenary Theater, and behind them Drew Faust, the president of the university, in these robes that have been worn by the university president for a very, very long time.
The robes came out of medieval castles when it was very cold, and these pockets hanging from the back actually were used to collect money to support higher education.
And there we see the members of the corporation, Nan Cohane in the black hat on the left, and others, Stephen Hyman, who is the provost of the university, and then the members of the Board of Overseers.
So we should point out that the day starts at 6:30 a.m. with bagpipes waking the undergraduates.
Tell me about it. Yes, they certainly do.
Given what went on last night, 6:30 is very early.
Yes, I think we're ready. We have our first interview with us this morning, Hengama Saberi, who is a graduate of the law school. Hengama, it is wonderful to have you here.
Good morning. Thanks, Professor Eck.
Yes.
I'm delighted to be here.
Hengama, this is also Professor Jim Anderson, who is in the School of Engineering and Applied Science.
Good morning and congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the degree you're receiving today. It's a doctorate in law, right?
Yes, it's an SJD degree, Doctor of Juridical Science, and it's the highest degree in law.
And what did you do to earn this degree?
Well, it's basically a first year or a 3-semester independent study time, followed by an oral exam and then dissertation.
And your dissertation was on what, Hengama?
Pragmatism and international law in the United States.
That's a very interesting topic. Can you tell us a little bit about what you intend to do?
What do you intend to do?
I'll be doing a postdoc research for a year, and then I will be preparing for teaching.
That's wonderful. And tell us, you've come from Iran to study here?
Yes, I'm Iranian.
And do you have family who have come today?
Unfortunately, I'm missing my family today. My mother was denied a visa, and my brother is still waiting for security clearance today, the day he should have been here, so I'm missing them. But I have lots of generous and kind friends who are around today.
That's wonderful. Well, we wish them congratulations as well when they do finally hear about your graduation, and hopefully they will be able to see some of this on streaming television.
Yes, I'm taking them a copy of morning exercises, and then I have a videographer who is basically filming the afternoon and the law school event as well.
Well, this is one of the advantages of our technology today, and we wish your family congratulations in Iran as well.
Thank you.
It's a very happy day for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hangama, and thank you for joining us here for a few moments.
Thank you very much.
Good. And have a great afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
And very good
Bye-bye.
luck. Bye-bye.
There's Howard Georgi, the master of Leverett House, camera slung around his neck.
And a professor of physics, very active in the undergraduate curriculum.
It's so wonderful to be able to talk with some of the graduates at this moment in their lives. And I feel especially how difficult it is when families cannot be present. That's Noah Feldman you see on the screen, who is the escort of could be, of Justice David Souter today. An extraordinary professor at the law school. And there's Dean Evelyn Hammond, Dean Mike Smith of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, the Deans Jay Light there of the Harvard Business School, all of them arriving on the platform to take their seats on this regal and wonderful occasion.
And of course, Dean Lena Kagan, who was a very effective dean of the law school here for many years, is now a candidate for the Supreme Court. And of course, there are a number of things we like to mention every year that's unique about the particular year past and the year coming. Certainly, the economic instability is still very much in the forefront, particularly now in Europe. And I think this also is an example of where all of the understanding of cultures and religions and different perspectives across the globe becomes so important. And that's of course something you've worked very hard on. The plurality program. Might mention a little bit of what's going on with that.
Well, the Pluralism Project has really studied the changing religious diversity of the United States, but also of other countries in the world that have become much more religiously and culturally plural over the last 30 years. And certainly true, and you see it here at our own commencement. Yesterday, the baccalaureate service that took place in this Memorial Church. There you see one of our honorands, if you might recognize her. I can't say who it is from now.
Of course.
Anyway,
very secret.
That wonderful baccalaureate included Chinese speakers who spoke the Analects of Confucius in Chinese, and Hebrew, and Sanskrit, and Arabic, and Greek, and that literally represents the graduating class of this university. That has changed immensely over the last 20 years. And that's typical of what is happening in the world. We all are other to one another in a way, and it's extraordinary that this university gathers so much of the world together.
And we were selected, I think, a few years back because we represented the far ends of the academic spectrum here, from religion to science, but I think we find ourselves joining because the problems of energy and climate link directly back into all of your work on cultures. We can't make any progress on those issues without understanding
everything
culture.
Depends on whether it's climate or population control. Religious communities are the largest NGOs in the world, and we need to know much, much more about them. We are joined now by someone, speaking of climate, someone who has some experience in the greening of Harvard, and that is one of our graduates, Susan DeWolf. Susan, say a word about yourself, where you've come from, and where you're headed.
So I'm from New York City. I'm a neurobiology major, and I'll be off to Columbia Medical School next year. And I've loved being involved with the Green Initiative here, working in the house and across the campus.
And do you think we're making progress?
Yeah, I think little things make big differences. I think one of the great things about being in a student group is that even if you teach one or two people who end up being leaders one day, they can be in places that can really change the country's attitude about environmental policies and how to live responsibly.
And of course, medicine is intimately tied to climate change, disease propagation, and a number of other topics. Are you intending to specialize in anything in medical school?
Not sure yet. I'm very excited to explore different opportunities and see what comes my way.
Well, congratulations on Columbia Medical School, but also congratulations to them. Congratulations to your family. You have family here from New York today?
Yeah, they're all here. My parents are up. My sister will be on the way. Make it for the Lowell ceremony.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations to you, Susan. Thank you for joining us for a few minutes this morning.
Of course,
and we wish you good luck in the years ahead.
Well, I'll be back to visit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a wonderful moment a year ago in the fall when Al Gore spoke here, and where the banners are hanging today across Harvard Yard, there were banners that said, "Green is the new crimson," and perhaps it really is. Next we have one of the marshals of the class of 2010, Andres Castro Samayoa. Did I pronounce it right?
Perfectly.
When I asked some people who should we interview, this was as I was poaching salmon in my kitchen the other night for a crowd of dozens. They all said, "Oh, Andres, interview Andres." So tell us about yourself.
That's very good. Well, I've really enjoyed my time here at Harvard. I've been very involved with the Harvard College Women's Center and the Advising Programs Office, and that's really allowed me to get to know a lot of the administration here, and also get to interact with a lot of my peers, which is what I've enjoyed the most. So that's been great.
How does it happen that a guy is part of the Women's Center?
Well, my concentration is studies of women, gender, and sexuality. And I originally came to Harvard thinking that I was going to go into biochemical sciences and then neuropsychology within the psychology department. And then I realized that a liberal arts education is about exposing myself to something I have never really been exposed to before. I'm from El Salvador, so I had never really thought about gender issues, and I thought that it was important, so I just took the plunge.
Wonderful.
So you grew up in El Salvador, and what led you to Harvard? What was the process that brought you here? You grew up in El Salvador, and you decided to come to Harvard?
Yes, I was able to visit here when I was a junior in high school. I came from Model UN, and it was the only college I got to visit in the United States, and I absolutely loved it. And it was the gut feeling, and I just let myself follow that. And I applied, and it worked out well, so I was very happy.
Congratulations. What
Thank
a wonderful story. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Now, I also have heard that you have been appointed what is colloquially called the fun czar.
That's correct.
Many of our viewers don't know what a fun czar is, but
Yeah.
what will you be doing as fun czar next year?
The title, it's the fellow for the Office of Student Life, known as the Fun Czar, because at its origins, it was about trying to create greater community within the undergraduate body of students. So we, as the Fun Czar next year, I'm going to be organizing Yard Fest, which happens in the spring, where we bring an artist just to celebrate the coming of the spring and give an opportunity for students to enjoy themselves, and also be coordinating the Harvard-Yale weekend. So it's a lot of exciting logistics that will hopefully give the students coming next year an opportunity to appreciate Harvard.
And what are your plans after next year?
I received a Gates Scholarship to go to Cambridge and get an MPhil in Gender Studies, and they were gracious enough to let me defer that for a year so I could undertake the fellowship here with the Office of Student Life.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Andres. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to your parents. Are they here?
Yes, my mother is here and my brother is here as well, so they're very
Wonderful.
excited and very proud, and I'm glad.
Great.
Well, they should be.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Enjoy commencement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got the best seats in the house. Of course, we'll enjoy commencement week. It's wonderful.
So we're filling up, Diana. We have
really
probably
are.
29,500 out of the 30,000 that will eventually be lined up, sitting down, standing up. As you mentioned before, in the back of this theater, you literally need a telescope to see the stage, which is just to our right, and it too is filling up.
Well, it's a good thing of recent years they put these great jumbo screens up. Even so, there are many people who are quite distant from them. We should know, of course, that here this morning, students are awarded their degrees, so to speak, not one by one, thankfully, but they are awarded by what are called speech acts. That is, when the president says, by the authority vested in me, by the corporation of Harvard University, I confer upon you the degree. That's when they actually graduate. That's when they get the degree. Then they all repair to their various schools, or in the case of the undergraduates, to their houses, where they're actually awarded the diploma.
And of course, you're master of Lowell House. You actually pass out the diploma this afternoon to some 110
I do,
or
and
so graduates.
I have to practice those names because we literally have students from all over the world, and this is the one time when you really want to get their name right.
That's right. 20 years ago, you could easily pronounce all of them. Now the diversity is dramatic.
I looked it up the other day on the Harvard College Facebook, and there were lots more Zhangs and Lees than either Smiths or Joneses by a long shot. The enormous diversity of the undergraduate body, and I think across the board, the presence of many people from all parts of a very diverse Asia here at the university. Very, very important.
And of course, the parallel story to this involves the returning alums, the big reunions of the 25th and the 50th, but then it, of course, goes on up 55th, 60th, 65th, all the way up to the 75th, and this represents a tremendous part of the Harvard community, not only involvement in supporting the university financially, but the network of alums across the world really spans a tremendous range of interests and cultural differences. So we should celebrate and point out the importance of these tremendous contributors to the university.
Something like 180 Harvard clubs around the world, and there is some truth to the fact that you can come to Harvard College, but you can never really quite leave. I mean, they leave today, but there is a network of people whom many of them discover to their great benefit years and years after they graduate. And people do return, not only for their 5th, or 25th, for their 50th. And we have some fairly distinguished people back for their 50th reunion this year. I don't know how many of them are actually here, but in this 50th reunion class are Justice Scalia, Mike Dukakis, Elizabeth Dole, John Harbison, the composer, and Charles Mayer and Pauline Mayer, who are both in the history department here. This was the heyday, the class of 1960, of John F. Kennedy, of George Bundy, of Eric Erickson, of the whole range of very distinguished faculty members here. And in the 25th reunion class, there's also quite a spectrum of very wonderful and interesting people, including the woman who became the Crown Princess of Japan, including Conan O'Brien, and many, many of them back for that great 25th.
Well, we have our fourth and final interviewee, Simon Lee.
Simon, Diana Eck, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Professor.
Hi, it's very nice to see you again. It's a little loud, so we'll try to speak up so you can hear the questions. So tell us a little bit about your Harvard experience.
My Harvard experience has been amazing, rewarding, and very humbling. I'm not somebody to call it the best and defining experience of my life, but it's something that I am so proud of and happy to have had. It's been very enriching.
Tell us about your family who are here today.
Yes, so I'm half Chinese and half Iranian. Both my parents were born in the States, but their parents immigrated in the 40s. My father and his brothers went here, and my mother works at the health services, actually. And so both my sisters, one of my sisters is in Dunster House, and my grandmothers, some other relatives from around the country are here today. It's very exciting.
What a family. So very typical, I think, of what is emerging in the world.
Yes.
And your major?
My major's a little strange. I'm economics, but also pre-med. So I've spanned two very different worlds at Harvard, and it's also been a really good learning experience for me. Diverse. Also,
your contributions to the college while you've been here have been outstanding in global health, all the organizations that you've started and propagated, and we're very proud of you for this initiation, and looking forward to tremendous things after you go to medical school. And can you tell us a little bit about the next year? What are you planning this year?
Yes, next year I'll be, I'm applying to medical school now, starting on Tuesday, actually. But in the next year, I will be in China, in Beijing, doing, half my time will be spent doing a Mandarin program to further my studies of Mandarin. And then I'll also be participating on a public health study about childhood obesity prevention in cooperation with the Chinese CDC and the School of Public Health.
Very interesting. That is really great. You know, we have a graduate from the history of medicine this year, Laura Dawes, who was a tutor in Lowell House, who wrote her PhD thesis on childhood obesity. This is increasingly a concern both in the United States and China, concern of the First Lady, Michelle Obama. So
yeah, and around the developing world. Thank you very much.
So it's China this year. Can you tell us about last summer?
Yes,
last summer. You were in Iran, I think.
So I was in China in 2008, in the summer 2008, and I caught the Olympics, which was wonderful. And the following summer, I really wanted to start to work on my Farsi. Felt bad I could speak one language in my family, but not the other. And I went with the aim of doing a small independent research project, also in public health in Iran, where I have a lot of relatives. And I went with my mother and my youngest sister to Tehran at the beginning of June. I thought this would be a very great time to go because we would witness a historic event, the presidential election. But, well, it was a historic event, but it unfortunately was such that there was a lot of violence and political turmoil, and it was too dangerous, so I actually ended up leaving after 2 weeks. But nonetheless, it was a very important educational experience. I still got a lot out of it, so I'm glad I went.
We're so counting on people like you to build bridges between the United States and Iran. We hope that happens.
After Christian Amanpour's address yesterday at class day, I think, I feel very confident that the direction I'm heading in for at least the next year will serve me well and hopefully others. So.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you.
And congratulations
and good luck to you. What an interesting woman. Thank you, Jim. You know, she mentioned Christiane Amanpour's address yesterday at class day, which was absolutely spectacular. There are very often comedians and people who talk at class day. She began by saying that she's really not very funny, but she gave the most inspirational address about the need for moral courage, the need to go out in the world and learn languages. It's a global world. All of the things that seem far away now are really affecting us, and we need to take that seriously, that the rest of the world knows a lot more about us than we know about them. And it was a standing oration. It was really spectacular.
Yeah, when Simon Lee joins China to Iran through the United States, you can see the family connections here. But when you were in your very early 20s, you went to India for the first time, and that transformed your entire life.
My life, and I think these experiences abroad really do. An extraordinary opportunity to work with people and get to know people on a face-to-face basis that very often we know only through half-baked ideas and stereotypes. And I'm happy to say that through the work of the South Asia Initiative here at Harvard, we really are beginning to create a South Asian Studies program that will expand the Department of Sanskrit and Indian Studies into something that is far more inclusive and I think far more generative of real work in South Asia, because we need this.
Yes.
Very much.
Well, we're extremely proud of you, too, for everything you've brought, because knowledge is one thing, but knowledge applied to proactive advancement of the human condition is really the issue. And of course, you've been at the forefront of that now and done tremendous work, religious, cultural, joining Asia and the United States.
Well, I will say that dialogue is really the language that we all need to learn, which is both listening to others and being able to speak of our own deepest values to them. But the listening part is something that is extremely important, that give and take, that is part of education, to be sure.
And Harvard emerged as a modern university really under the Eliot presidency in the 19th century, and the model was to join teaching and research, which of course we take for granted today, but it was really a Germanic model that Eliot, who was a chemist actually before he took over the presidency, said this is the way we're going to construct this modern university, and it evolved, of course, then into the Abbott Lawrence Lowell period, starting in 1909, and that is now the structure and function of universities across the United States, and it serves as a very important ambassadorial focus for bringing students in and then sending them home with this educational structure.
We still have such a great program of higher education in the United States. I think we need to be proud of that. And, you know, when you look at the range of people who are speaking today or yesterday at Harvard Commencement, people ask who's speaking at Harvard Commencement. Well, actually, this morning we have 3 student speakers, and we'll hear from them. Speakers who competed for these commencement parts, 1 in Latin and 2 in English, 1 by a graduate student and 1 by an undergraduate. But then beyond this, a whole range of people. The Phi Beta Kappa speaker was the historian Natalie Zeman Davis. A fantastic speech about the significance of friendship. And the Class Day speakers, well, I mentioned Christian Amanpour from here at the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, but in the School of Government, it was Felipe Calderon, the President of Mexico. In the law school, it was Samantha Power, great and humanist researcher into some of the deepest tragedies of the 20th century. In the School of Business, it was Sir Roger Cohen, who is a venture capitalist and also a member of the Board of Overseers. So a huge range. And of course, I would have to say tomorrow at Radcliffe, it's Gloria Steinem. So this is really a festival of the great and the inspiring of our time.
These oratories are in many ways the crown jewel of the morning's event. And as you point out, they have competed to be able to do this, but when they actually step up, they stand up before 30,000 people, no notes, no teleprompter, and they execute these brilliant deliveries that, well, I have to say, we've enjoyed them so much over the years.
And they are coached, of course, to some extent, but almost no coaching can prepare you for the sea of human faces that you look out on when you stand at that mic.
2 are in English, 1's in Latin. And as I've always thought, I'd prefer giving the Latin one because you can say almost anything you want.
I don't know. I mean, everybody, and there are people who will laugh at the Latin jokes. Actually, I think that most people have a translation of the Latin oration on their chairs here. This is, we should say, a very very scripted ritual. So from the moment the sheriff calls the proceedings to order, almost everything that is said is written in this little book called The Order for the Conferring of Degrees, which is printed by the university and has everything that each of the deans of the various schools will say. And that will pertain pretty much right to the banging of the mace as the sheriff calls the proceedings to a conclusion. Now this happy chaos will, eventually make its way into a fairly non-extemporaneous order.
Right, and when the sheriff calls us all to order, we, in large measure, step back, and the procedure is then done as it's been done for decades, if not centuries.
In these great rituals of this sort, a community really acts out who it is. And in this sense, I think Harvard University acts out that kind of combination of festivity and academic seriousness that is part of who we are. And one of the things that's very significant about the ritualization of commencement is that it is filled with processions led by bagpipers and by Dixieland bands, etc., and processions to the yard, to the Tercentenary Theater, and processions back to the various schools and houses. And processions do mark those transitions. I think there is little amazement in the fact that we are a university that today is on foot pretty much.
So as we listen to the music in the background, we, I think, recall the fact that music has become a large part of this event. Many pieces have been written just for the graduation ceremonies. But as you pointed out before, Harvard replaces 2,000 people crossing the stage to receive their diploma with a very concentrated mix of humor, speakers, tradition, and I think it's that focus and a focus on what the university is all about that really makes this ceremony unusual for typical university commencement exercises.
And of course, you mentioned the very first commencement in 1642, where there were only 9 commencers. Now, even in the undergraduate class today, there are 1,673, of whom there will be 75 summas. And this is a very select group of people. There you see Jackie O'Neill, and behind her, Chief Justice Margaret Marshall of the Massachusetts Supreme Court.
And the total number of graduates today is 7,125. They come from medicine, law, divinity, design, education, government, public health, business, dental, and the Extension School. And the Extension School, of course, is a very important part of continuing education and has served the community here in a very important way for decades. And many of the faculty love to teach in the Extension School because the people in those classes come back because they really want to learn. And it's a very important part of what Harvard contributes.
The Extension School has really made great advances in online education as well, in distance learning. And the course I taught on world religions this last fall, I had students who were in Malaysia and in India and Thailand who were taking that course through the internet. And it was a first for me and an extraordinary experience. There you get a view of this great platform on the steps of the Memorial Church, and the tent that is spread out over us here is one that was created for the 350th celebration at Harvard. A very beautiful multi-peaked tent designed somehow by a computer, but that at least keeps the faculty dry if there's ever a sprinkle of rain.
Before we transition to the scripted ceremony, we should point out that Harvard was established in 1636. That was just a few years after the Mayflower landed, and by that time there were some 10 to 12,000 Northern Europeans along the shore, stretching from Maine to Narragansett Bay, and it was remarkable how quickly the educational system was set up, primarily to teach people how to propagate the Puritan religion, and of course it then evolved into a much broader venue. But I always marvel at how rickety things were in those days, and even the beginning of the university here was very questionable.
And that it was so swiftly undertaken. So as not to leave an illiterate ministry to the churches, so they say. And that there's Justice Souter standing right there. We're so proud of him. You know, he is a member of the Lowell House Senior Common Room. And he does come to tea at Lowell House. He's been about 5 times during the last few years. It's a great pleasure that he's back, and such a son of Harvard to be proud of.
There's Mike Smith, who's the Dean of FAS.
We should say that this particular class of 2010 entered in the fall of 2006 under acting president, again, Derek Bach. And in the spring of 2007, they were the first to hear the news of Drew Faust's election. They were here when Drew Faust was inaugurated, as were we. And that was the fall of 2007. And this class has also seen the introduction of general education, of the new calendar with this first May commencement. We should actually remark upon this, the first time we've sat here in May ever. And a new calendar that has moved the Harvard calendar more into sync with other university calendars.
So finals in the fall term are before the holidays, and it's taken some adjustment.
I think it's taken adjustment on the part of both the faculty and the students.
Right.
And there still is this moment in January that people sometimes call the January experiment, the January break, or the January term. We're not quite sure what it is yet, but it is a much-needed break for our students in any case.
But it meant that with the finals before holidays, as opposed to 3 weeks after the holidays, were, I dare say, enjoyed more by the students in the past hundreds of years, which is what the calendar emerged all the way, I think, from more than 200 years ago, and it was just changed this year.
Well, one of the things that Drew Faust said to the graduates as they sat in their baccalaureate service on Tuesday afternoon was that you can't really count on a scripted life. And you ought to be prepared for the unscripted, for the things that twists and turns of life itself. And I think this class has really learned this, that, as she said last year as well, improvisation is the word you'll need to be able to live into as you move into a world of such rapid change. And certainly that's true. That's true for all of us, for faculty and students alike.
Yes, in the past, there was a seamless transition from college into scripted professions, degrees. That has all changed. And on the one hand, it's more difficult, but on the other hand, it's a very exciting opportunity. And what each of the graduates does with their life now becomes very important. And the way in which the United States deals with the global situation, of course, it involves a far better understanding of what's going on globally. And of course, we have the rise of China, a complete reconfiguration of primary energy generation over there. And then we have technical breakdowns such as the Gulf oil spill to deal with, and these all require a far more integrated approach to how we think about the future.
Yes. One of the aphorisms, Analects of Confucius, that was quoted in the baccalaureate was, "Learning without thought is labor lost, but thought without learning is perilous." And I think we can see that in the world today. We need the learning and the exposure and the global reach to back up the kinds of decisions that people in this tercentenary theater will be making. And there the president, the first woman ever to be elected president of Harvard University, and someone who has acquitted herself so beautifully over the last 3 years.
She will be sitting in the Jacobean chair, which is probably the most uncomfortable chair ever created in the Western Hemisphere. And every president sits on that chair as they confer degrees on all of these graduates this morning.
We preserve those things, not only the old chair, but the 17th century gown, you might say, of the Unitarian, of the old ministers of old, Unitarian gown.
And until the late 19th century, graduation involved no robes, no color. It was street clothes. And then in the late 19th century, Europe and then the United States shifted over to this particular arrangement.
Well, we are hearing the bells toll, and pretty soon we're going to hear Jackie O'Neill or Steve Hyman, I'm not sure which one, step to the mic and say, "Mr. Sheriff, pray give us order."
Mr. Sheriff, pray give us order.
Sheriff of Middlesex County. I don't even know that he needs a microphone.
Jim DePaulo.
Please rise for the national anthem and remain standing. The chaplain of the day will open the exercises with a prayer.
Let us pray. Draw us, O God, into your presence as daughters and sons, family and friends of Harvard, a people of many tongues and individual convictions, united in gratitude that this day has arrived and eager for these exercises to proceed. We now call upon you to bless each of us and all of us. Mindful of the sacrifices that have led to the achievements honored at these festival rites, may this pause to rejoice be not an end in itself, but nourishment for a lifelong love of challenges, learning, growth, and service. Help us to be heralds of light and bearers of love, with qualities of faithful living woven into the fabric of purposeful action. Direct us towards small actions that make a great difference, speaking encouraging words, expressing confidence in the dreams of youth, being attentive to human qualities beneath outward appearances, honoring the abilities of others, and living humbly with strongly held views. May we embody wisdom and compassion, thoughtfulness and respect, gentleness and forgiveness, as reflections of your sustaining love as the holy, hidden being to whom we entrust our living in these days. Amen.
Thum Fuck. This has been sung at every commencement for as long as I can
Latin salutatory, cor Howardianum cor nostrum. Candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts, Marianne Marks.
Salvete omnes! Praeses Faust, decani, professoresque, hospites, et familiares, et condiscipuli. Salvete! Convenimus in hoc universitatis camporum ocello, qui per annos iam transactos factus est noster, profectori vitae novum in gradum. Cum diversis rebus studuerimus, et diversas vias secutorissimus, existit ne tamen aliquid quod nos omnes didicerimus, et quo omnes uti possimus? Equidem, sic arbitror, cor Harvardianum, cor nostrum id nomino, id est fervorem animi. Ego quidem, cum modo ad venissem apud Harvardianos, quid expectarem nescivi, nisi mentes refulgentes, et multum labores, et intellectus incrementum, haec spes certe non me fe fellit, quotiens de schola vel de hora discipulis adjuvandis exhibam, mente laete fatigata, sane mirabar sapientiam ingeniumque professorum et condiscipulorum. Non tamen Harvardianorum sapientia, sed calor, atque ardor inspiratus per hos annos quatuor me tetigerunt. Non mihi si linguae centum sint, oraque centum, aurea vox, comprendere tot fabulas possim, quae quidem vobis ipsis sunt per notae. Professores qui literis electronicis longioribus ad questiones respondebant, et non solum mentes, sed etiam domos, atque corda, per libenter pandebant, ut itinera nobis pararent, et nostras res foverent. Bis, professores mei, ita operis pulcritudine affecti sunt, ut ad lacrimas fere commoti sint. Unus cum legaremus quomodo Ovidii Orpheus, suam Euridicen iterum amisisset. Alter, quomodo Tolstoiani Levinus et Caterina reconciliati essent. His omnibus observatis, universitatis imago aliquantulum frigida, duraque, in mollius dissolvere coepit. Hoc modo, universitas nostra similis est bibliothecae Wiedenerianae, de saxis silicibus et marmore facta, aliis edificationibus amplitudine atque robore praecelens, vere dignum sapientiae templum quodam videtur. Sed re vera, sicut vos recordamini, haec bibliotheca edificata est tamquam matris monumentum memoriae filii sui, Enrici Wiedenerii, discipuli Harvardiani, qui Titanico in naufragio periit. Quam obrem tabulata superiora disposita sunt circa spatium apertum. et in medio, situm est cubiculum Enrici ipsius, cum libris et scrinio eius, ubi bibliothecarii flores vivos ad hoc ponere solent. Sicut matris pietas, bibliothecae formam naturamque effinxit, ita quoque animarum nostratum fervor res nostras fingere potest et debet, si cor nostrum commovere sinemus, si artem quae nos stimulat sequemur, operatum nostratum studium nobis gaudium feret, et nos sustinebit per longas horas et quotidianae taedium vitae. Non autem nobis solum, sed etiam aliis hoc prodesse potest. Eodem modo quo professorum studium nos excitavit, atque delectavit, et quod inde cordaiorum laetificavit studium nostrum. Ita, si superabimus pavorem ne vulneremur, si calorem foebimus, et eum aliis largiemur, illos inspirabimus, et illis vias novas aperiemus. Progredite, igitur, ex corde Howardiano, cordibus vestris, ad recipiendum adque donandum paratis. Avete, atque valete!
What a wonderful address. Speaking of warmth and vulnerability in this great crowd. Very, very sensitive. Rather unusual, I think, for Latin orations.
It really matters what they say now. A few years ago.
Senior English Address, Poetry for Chemists, candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts, Chiamaka Lillian Wakezi.
The poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge was once asked why he attended so many chemistry lectures. He responded that the chemistry lectures improved his stock of metaphors. I'm not a poet. I was a neurobiology concentrator. But I've discovered that in the same way that Coleridge enriched his poetry by studying science, I have deepened my knowledge and appreciation of neurobiology by studying the humanities and the social sciences. In neurobiology, we learn of two fundamental types of cells, our neurons and our glial cells. Neurons are the cells within our brains that allow us to do everything, from walking and running to speaking and listening. These projections form the foundation of human behavior. Our glial cells are a different cell type. They're the glue that holds our neurons together. In many ways, they're the scaffold that provides the brain its structure. A liberal arts education is like our glial cells. Such an education provides the scaffold on which individuals are formed and allowed to develop creativity and innovation in whatever field they choose to study. Going through college, my interest in neurobiology grew, but so too did my interest in Hindu literature and Dutch Renaissance painting. As my curiosity increased, I developed an interconnected consciousness whereby I thought about the subjects I studied, not as disparate fields, but rather as an organic whole, important for obtaining a total picture of reality. One powerful example of this interconnected consciousness at play is in the work of Oliver Sacks. A renowned author and physician, he's been called the poet laureate of modern medicine. In his most recent work, Musicophilia, Oliver Sacks beautifully tells the story of a young woman with epilepsy who is indifferent to music. She's never been moved by it. But when she is placed on a drug to treat her seizures, something happens, and she begins to passionately pursue music, listening to classical radio stations for hours on end. This story brings to life scientific questions which may not have been asked before. How does this drug transform a meaningless distraction into a beloved pastime? Why does it happen in this particular woman and not with others? Harvard professor George Daly is a preeminent stem cell biologist, and in a class he taught this semester, we delved deeply into the science of stem cells. But we also studied the patients who interacted with us in the classroom. Like scientists, like artists, we watched their bodies and their movements, so altered by illness. Like anthropologists, we listened to their narratives about how disease had changed their lives. George Daly and Oliver Sacks place science in the context of human experience. Likewise, current discussions of our healthcare reform weave science and the liberal arts together, connecting the economist who warns that expensive drugs burden our healthcare system, connecting the research scientist who labors day and night to synthesize cheaper generic drugs, connecting the historian who attempts to elucidate how we found ourselves with this system of heavy costs and heavier burdens on our healthcare practitioners. We bring together their perspectives to form a complete picture of our healthcare system. We weave together perspectives across disciplines to form a complete tapestry of our reality. In the words of David DeSnow, E.O. Wilson once argued that the reductionist science will one day correct the unempirical humanities. But though equations may describe our world, we do not experience it through these equations. We do not feel the neurotransmitters in our brains that allow us to remember our mother's voices. Instead, we experience the moral to emotions and narrative. We feel joy and we feel sadness. As a neurobiology concentrator, I appreciate and I love science, but I am not defined by it. If I were to take my favorite line from The Tempest and reduce the line to a series of words, a string of letters, a sequence of syllables, the line would lose its meaning. How beauteous mankind is, O brave new world that has such people in it. Today, let us go forth willing to consider perspectives from all disciplines. Let us reaffirm our commitment to the liberal arts through the development of the general education curriculum. And perhaps Harvard can provide a new generation of undergraduates the ability to read syllables and appreciate the meaning that gives them life.
Beautiful statement about the integration of sciences with humanity, which is the curriculum we're going to use.
Graduate English Address, The Town, the Gown, and Asking for Help. Candidate for the degree of Master in Public Administration, James Tingle.
Cheered roundly by the people from the Kennedy School.
Thank you. I am truly honored to be here this morning. My name is Jimmy Tingle, and that is my real name. And I was born and raised right here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I am an unlikely choice to give a commencement address at Harvard, Because quite frankly, my friends, I am not a scholar, which will become increasingly more evident as I proceed. I'm a comedian by profession, and I started performing here in the Boston area in the early 1980s. I actually did street performing right out here in Harvard Square. I've traveled all over the world performing stand-up comedy. I don't want to brag, but 2 years ago, I performed in Europe. And I'd just like to say, excellent country. You know what's nice about being here this morning? You actually get that joke. Actually, I am from a long line of intellectuals. Growing up here in Cambridge, we lived right near a college. My father owned and drove taxi cabs here in Harvard Square. He would pick up Harvard professors. They would tell him things. He would come home and tell us. For generations, Harvard has given scholarships to students from Cambridge and students from all over the world who could meet the academic requirements. Starting in the 3rd grade, my dear sweet mother, who was here this morning, would say to me, "Jimmy, if you study really hard, someday you could go to Harvard." By the 6th grade, she stopped telling me that. By the 8th grade, our whole neighborhood had their eyes set on Harvard. Not so much for scholarships, but because it was an excellent place to steal bicycles. I can remember running through this very yard some 40 years ago, being chased by Harvard students, the Harvard faculty, and the Harvard Police Department. Other college campuses during the 1960s were bitterly divided between the students and the administration over civil rights and the war in Vietnam. But here at Harvard, my friends and I were able to unite students, faculty, and law enforcement. It was in this very yard that I had my first spiritual awakening. As I was running, I started to pray, please God, don't let me get caught. I'll never do it again. My mother will kill me. She always wanted me to go to Harvard. This isn't what she meant. And then I realized I was an altar boy. I was a Catholic. I should have been praying before I tried to take the bicycle. And I just want to say to the alumni gathered here this morning, on behalf of myself and all the other misguided youth of Cambridge and Greater Boston, who may have unjustifiably taken your bicycles, we're sorry. And to the graduates, many of you will go on to positions of great power and influence in business and politics and government. And the temptations to cut corners, to lie, to steal, to cheat will be formidable. My advice to you today is simply this: ask for guidance before you commit the crime. Trust me, it is much less embarrassing to ask for help privately than to beg for forgiveness at graduation. And I am so grateful that the petty crimes of my youth were not successful. For had my dishonest behavior been rewarded, I may not be with you here today. My life may have taken a different turn, and I could have ended up on Wall Street. I always wanted to go to this school, but always felt it was too late. Yet encouraged by family and friends and colleagues and my mom and my wife, Catherine, I put in an application anyway, and like all of you, was absolutely overjoyed when that letter of acceptance came in the mail. I couldn't believe it. I said to my wife, I can't believe this. After all these years, I've actually been accepted to Harvard. They must really need a commencement speaker. And this entire year, people have asked me, Jimmy, why would a comedian want to go to Harvard? The same reason all of you wanted to go to Harvard. We got in. And all of us have faced challenges getting here today, and still more academic challenges once classes started. My biggest academic challenge was the quantitative mathematics requirement for graduation. Unfortunately, I had to take statistics. Fortunately, we had a wonderful and dedicated and great teacher, Deborah Hughes Hallett, who was kind enough to arrange extra help sessions for students who were struggling with the material. I went to every single extra help session she offered, and it was always a very familiar scenario. Me and 19 students from other countries. Countries often in conflict with one another. India and Pakistan, Turkey and Greece, Israelis and Palestinians, all of us helping one another, all of us learning from one another, all of us supporting one another across racial, ethnic, and religious lines. And I say this as a native Bostonian, all of us with English as a second language. All of us are here today because somebody helped us. Whether it was family or friends or colleagues or teachers or administrations or scholarships or God or a higher power, someone or something helped us get here today. And now it's our job to help others. And that is education. And that is human progress in its simplest form. And I believe very, very strongly, that with the right amount of physical, spiritual, and intellectual help, almost anything in this world is possible. All of the students in those extra help sessions passed those courses. Some of those students actually got an A in statistics. I personally got a B, which for me was a miracle. Actually, in the spirit of honesty, a B minus. Which was a minor miracle. But if I could get the help that I needed to get a B minus in statistics, in quantitative mathematics, at graduate school, at Harvard, there is hope for world peace. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Of the university. I don't think I've ever heard anything quite like that.
No,
I'm not even to Jackie O'Neill, another Cambridgian.
I had to push the silence button. I was laughing so hard.
We're about to hear one of the newer anthems that has been written for Harvard Commencement, for the splendor of creation.
Creation that draws us to These addresses by selected candidates for ordinary degrees being ended, the deans of the several departments will now present to the President and Fellows and to the Board of Overseers, in the favoring presence of the friends here assembled, the candidates on whom the various academic distinctions are, with due ceremony, to be conferred. The Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences.
Dean Michael Smith.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College. Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. In the name of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and by its authority, I have the honor to report on 4 groups of candidates who will be presented to you today. First, the Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences will present candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and then the degrees of Master of Arts and of Science. Next, the Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences will present candidates for the degrees of Master of Science and of Engineering. Third, the Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension will present candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts and Extension Studies. Finally, near the close of these exercises, the seniors in Harvard College who are candidates for the first degree in arts or in science will stand proudly before you. The candidates in each of these groups have, by vote of the faculty, fulfilled the requirements of the degrees for which they are severally recommended. I salute all of these men and women, trusting that they will forever wisely follow and enjoy the freedoms that their education has given to them, while bearing the responsibilities that their learning demands of them. Each of these groups will now be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs for which they have been enrolled.
Candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy will rise. The Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
Dean Alan Brandt.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College. Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these scholars, all of whom have devoted themselves to the rigorous pursuit of advanced study, have attained high distinction, and have made original contributions to knowledge in their several fields of scholarship.
By virtue of authority delegated to me and recognizing your high academic achievements, I confer on you, men and women of learning, the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. I welcome you to the ancient and universal company of scholars, and I entrust to you the free inquiry of future generations. Congratulations.
The first degree to be awarded today, the PhD, is certainly the degree for which a graduate has spent the longest time working. Many of these people have spent 5 or 6 years at their doctoral studies.
Candidates from the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences for the degrees of Master of Arts and Master of Sciences will rise. The Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these candidates, all of whom have completed a commendable step of advanced study in their respective disciplines.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Arts or Master of Science, and I certify that you have surmounted with distinction the first stage of graduate study. Congratulations.
Candidates from the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences for the degrees of Master of Science and Master of Engineering will rise. The Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences.
So Dean Cherry Murray, our first year. She's done a spectacular job leading the school.
Madam President and Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President and Overseers, and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these women and men who have completed their first step of advanced study in engineering and applied sciences.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Science or Master of Engineering and certify that you have surmounted with distinction the first stage of graduate study. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies will rise. The Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension.
This is Dean Michael Schneegel.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of Continuing Education, I have the honor in this centennial year to present these students, candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, or Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies, and admit you to the Fellowship of Educated Women and Men. Congratulations.
702 graduates, all ages.
All ages, and many of them from the background that Jimmy Tingle is describing today. Again, the singing of an anthem on Psalm 78.
the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine,
The Dean Jeffrey Flyer.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. In the name of the Faculty of Medicine and by its authority, I have the honor to report today that 2 groups of candidates in the fields of medicine and dental medicine have fulfilled the requirements of the faculty for the degrees for which they are recommended. They will be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs in which they are enrolled.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Medical Sciences, and Master of Medical Sciences will rise.
Waving teeth and toothbrushes, I think.
The Dean of the School of Dental Medicine.
This is Dean Bruce
Madam
Donoff.
President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the School of Dental Medicine, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has devoted 4 years to the study of dental medicine, or at least 3 years to postdoctoral studies aimed at improving health and the quality of life.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Medical Sciences, or Master of Medical Sciences, and declare that you are qualified for practice and research in a demanding branch of medicine. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Medicine and Master of Medical Science will rise. The Dean for Medical Education.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean for Medical Education, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has worked hard and well to prepare for a life of learning and service in medicine.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Medicine or Master of Medical Science, and declare that as physicians you are ready to engage in an honorable and merciful calling. Congratulations.
A great group of medical doctors have, again, quite a long haul they have put in.
Candidates for the degree of Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, or Doctor of Theology will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Divinity.
This is Dean William Graham, Islamic scholar, actually, by training.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Divinity, it is my honor and privilege to present to you these women and men, each of whom has devoted 2, 3, or in the case of doctoral students, many more years to the study, to theological studies or to religious studies in preparation for careers in scholarship or in service.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, or Doctor of Theology, and declare that you are well prepared to foster the health and vitality of communities of faith, to further scholarship in religious studies, and to help in shaping the shared values of the broader society. Congratulations.
The Master of Divinity is the degree that really is preparation for ministry, a 3-year degree, and the Master of Theological Studies,
Candidates for the
a shorter
degrees
degree.
of Doctor of Law, Master of Laws,
This is the
and
group seated
Doctor
right
of
below us here.
Juridical Science will rise.
They compete with the business school for noise level.
They certainly do.
The Dean of the Faculty of Law.
They love her. This is the first year that Dean Martha Minow, a member of the faculty, is dean.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Faculty of Law, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has completed a degree in legal studies toward the end of advancing justice and promoting the rule of law.
By virtue of authority, you better let me give you this degree. Just hang on. By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Law, Master of Laws, or Doctor of Juridical Science, and declare that you are ready to aid in the shaping and application of those wise restraints that make us free. Congratulations.
There are some 761 law graduates, only 11 who got the doctorate, as did our interview with Hengama Saberi from Iran.
Candidates for the degrees of Master in Business Administration and Doctor of Business Administration will rise.
An even larger crowd. There are 907 MBAs being awarded today. They're waving flags from all countries of the world. I think this is the meaning of globalization, perhaps.
The loudest and longest.
The Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration.
Dean J. Light.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As the Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration, it is my honor to present to you these men and women who have developed their leadership skills and their understanding of the art of general management through the study of business administration.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master in Business Administration or Doctor of Business Administration, and testify that you are ready to lead people and organizations in enterprises that will serve society. Congratulations.
This is the one dean, Dean J. Light, who is stepping down this year and has been replaced as of July 1st with Nitin Nuria, member of the Business School faculty.
Candidates for the several degrees in architecture, landscape architecture, urban planning and design will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Design.
Says Dean Mastafati. 234 graduates.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Design, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has qualified for a master's degree in architecture, landscape architecture, urban design, urban planning, or design studies, or for the degree of Doctor of Design.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on each of you the degree for which you have qualified and declare your competence to lead in shaping the spaces in which we live. Congratulations.
I can't see it from here, but it looks as if many of them have something green on their mortarboard, and that, of course, is the new thing in architecture, green design.
Candidates for the degrees of Master and Doctor of Education will rise.
685 strong.
I can't see what they're waving. Can you, Jim?
No.
The Dean of the Faculty of Education.
Dean Kathleen McCartney.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Education, I have the honor to present to you these women and men who will be leaders in education practice, policy, and research.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on each of you the master's or doctor's degree in education and declare that you are well prepared to guide and serve the learning needs of contemporary society. Congratulations.
Candidates for the several degrees in public health will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Public Health.
Dean Julio Frank, Minister of the Environment for Mexico.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Public Health, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has qualified for a master's degree or a doctor's degree to provide leadership, advance knowledge, and improve the public's health.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees in public health for which your studies have qualified you. And I declare that you are well prepared to generate and utilize knowledge to improve health throughout the world. Congratulations.
This is a field that so many undergraduates aspire to go into these days.
Candidates for the degrees of Master in Public Administration, Master of Public Administration in International Development, Master in Public Policy, Master in Public Policy and Urban Planning, and Doctor in Public Administration will rise.
577. Diana.
All of them holding globes. We may hope that public administration improves with such enthusiastic graduates.
Dean David Elwood.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Government, it is my deep honor and distinct pleasure to present to you these women and men, each of whom has qualified to provide leadership in public service.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree for which your studies have qualified you. And I testify that you are well prepared to offer leadership in the quest for enlightened public policy and effective public service throughout the world. Congratulations.
Now the globes are going up in the air as well. I think we should probably explain that when the deans say Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers, they're referring to the President of the Board of Overseers, who is, I believe, Seth Waxman, an attorney, newly elected president. Williams, oh, clap your hands. He is the great King over all the earth. God is gone up with a shout.
candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Science will rise.
There they are. All 1,600, is it?
73.
1,673. And at the very front of this group are those who are candidates for the degree summa cum laude. They will be asked to come forward to receive the congratulations of the president and the Dean Evelyn Hammonds.
Your Lowell House is well represented.
I think we have quite a few summa cum laudes and at least one class marshal who will come forward.
Their chosen representatives, together with candidates for these degrees summa cum laude, will draw near.
These are the summas and the class marshals who are elected, the chosen representatives. Drawing near up on the steps.
The Dean of Harvard College.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Mr. President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of Harvard College, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has fulfilled the faculty's requirements for the first degree in arts or in science. Each candidate stands ready to advance knowledge, to promote understanding, and to serve society.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the first degree in arts or in science and admit you to the fellowship of educated men and women. Congratulations.
At this point, the president rises from her chair and joins Dean Evelyn Hammonds in congratulating.
Recognizing that Harvard College is the origin of all aspects of this university.
This is really the heart of the heart. Dean Hammonds has been a wonderful dean of Harvard College and through some very, very difficult times and is much beloved by students here.
By virtue of authority delegated to me by the two governing boards, I now confer the following honorary degrees. The provost will introduce the candidates.
Our first guest is a life peer in the British House of Lords. She is past president of the British Academy. She is the longtime principal of Newnham College, Cambridge. She chairs the Nuffield Foundation, one of Britain's leading charitable trusts. She was founding president of the British Philosophical Association and past president of the Aristotelian Society. She came to this extraordinary array of leadership roles as an eminent scholar of ethics and political philosophy. Born in Northern Ireland, educated at Oxford and Harvard, where she studied for her PhD with John Rawls, she has long served on the faculty of the University of Cambridge. She is a leading figure in bioethics and an expert in the philosophy of Immanuel Kant. She has written compellingly about accountability and trust in public life. She has deep interests in global justice and in issues of hunger, poverty, and children's rights. Her work has created powerful links between the humanities and the sciences and has surmounted borders, both academic and geographic. And both her scholarly thought and her public service have shaped debate on consequential public issues in Britain and beyond. We honor Baroness Honora O'Neill.
Adroit in the public use of reason, acute in thinking beyond borders. She deftly expounds the bounds of justice and casts fresh light on the question of trust. Honora Sylvia O'Neill, Doctor of Laws.
Extraordinary border-crossing, interdisciplinary background.
She represents the Union of Science and Societal Objectives.
Our next guest's father worked as a pipe fitter in a San Francisco shipyard bending steel. As an undergraduate at the University of California, our guest supported himself by working in steel mills. In the decades since, he has become perhaps the world's most legendary steelworker. As one of the most imaginative, daring, and influential sculptors of our age. Early on, after graduate study at Yale and travels in Europe, he worked in non-traditional materials such as rubber, fiberglass, neon tubing, and molten lead, creating works that had no formal base or pedestal, but were hung from a wall or spread across the floor. In time, he has become best known for his immense, stark, imposing, site-specific works, characteristically made of curved walls or heavy slabs of steel. They inhabit settings in Bilbao and Paris, New York and Los Angeles, St. Louis and Santa Fe, bearing names like torqued ellipses and tilted spheres. They take shape from elemental geometric forms, and they draw the viewer into a bracingly direct relationship with the object being viewed. As one leading critic wrote, he has given fabricated steel the power and density, the emotional address to the human body, the sense of empathy and urgency and liberation that once belonged only to bronze and stone. We honor an artist of exceptional boldness and power, Richard Serra.
A formidable man of steel, whose sublime creations unsettle and allure. He has knocked sculpture off its pedestal and forged a new interplay of viewer and viewed. Richard Serra, Doctor of Arts.
Our next guest is an illustrious biochemist who went on to lead one of America's great scientific institutions. Growing up in Iowa, he was fascinated by crystals and fossils. As a student at Grinnell and Berkeley, he grew intrigued by the chemistry of living things. After a stint at MIT, he began a long career at the University of Colorado at Boulder. Within 11 years, he claimed 3 of science's highest honors, the Heineken Prize for Biochemistry, the Lasker Award for Basic Medical Research, and the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. The awards recognized a discovery that overturned a central dogma in how we understand the molecular basis of life. He found that RNA is not merely a passive carrier of genetic information, it can also catalyze chemical reactions in living cells, once thought to be the function of proteins alone. As one observer put it, this seemed akin to discovering that the ancestor of all chickens did not come out of an egg. His ambitious research has since expanded to include a focus on telomeres, the tiny tips that protect the ends of our chromosomes. From 2000 until last year, he brought his talents to bear on leading the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. There he launched the Institute's first freestanding interdisciplinary research facility, Janelia Farm, and was a champion of innovative educational programs and support for early career scientists. We honor Thomas Cech.
Boulder's boldest investigator, Hughes's generative guide, a master biochemist whose discovery of ribozymes has deepened our appreciation for the splice of life. Thomas Robert Cech, Doctor of Science.
Should be pointed out that Tom Cech is a great friend of the university. He's gone back to Boulder to teach freshman chemistry. He's a remarkable individual.
Our next guest once offered her fellow sociologists the following advice. Don't be afraid of working on a frontier or of forging one. Go where your work carries you in the name of integrity and adventure, curiosity and creativity, for your own sake and for the sake of our discipline. She has lived by that credo since her days as a doctoral student at Harvard, and in so doing has shaped the field of medical sociology. Her lifetime of scholarship and teaching has explored the social and cultural dimensions of medical practice and biomedical research with a constant concern for the moral and spiritual dimensions of the healing arts. She has written powerfully about the ethical dilemmas that confront physicians doing clinical research as they seek both to discover new knowledge through experimentation and to provide patients with the best possible care. She has explored the cultural context of medicine through field studies in Belgium, in the Congo, and beyond. She has illuminated the vexing moral and sociological issues posed, for example, by organ transplantation. We honor the Annenberg Professor Emerita of the Social Sciences at the University of Pennsylvania, Renee Fox.
Renee Fox is being escorted by Charles Rosenberg, professor here, who also is in medicine and history, the history of medicine.
Exemplary expositor of medicine's moral conundrums, she reveals the pulsating reality of human relations in the quest of physicians to do good and no harm. Renee Claire Fox, Doctor of Laws.
We next recognize an inspirational leader who has turned an unheralded commuter college into a nationally recognized university and has galvanized remarkably successful efforts to attract minorities into math and science. At age 12, Already in high school in Birmingham, he took part in the 1963 Children's March for Civil Rights, which landed him in jail. "It wasn't that I was that courageous," he has said. "I was just a little kid who wanted a better life. The experience taught me that the more we expect of children, the more they can do." He graduated from the Hampton Institute. He graduated from the Hampton Institute at age 19 with highest honors in mathematics, then took his doctorate from the University of Illinois. By 1987, he was vice provost of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, where he has served as president since 1992. There he has emerged as one of the most dynamic leaders in American higher education. He is credited with transforming UMBC into a model of innovation in math and science education and a premier training ground for doctoral students, especially minority students, in science and technology. He is the kind of leader who elevates everyone around him, says one colleague. People from universities around the country are coming to see what he has done, says another. Author of 2 books on minority achievement, co-founder of the renowned Meyerhoff Scholars Program, he is known for staging big celebrations, usually associated with sports like football, to mark the triumphs of UMBC's indomitable chess team. We honor Freeman Hrabowski.
It's an inspirational story. Jailed at 12. Honorary degree at 59.
Galvanic force in his university's ascent, spurring success against the odds. A leader whose wellspring of energy and insight has plenished pools of talent in science and beyond. Freeman A. Hrabowski III, Doctor of Laws.
In 5th grade, her teacher stood before the class and asked a question both simple and impossibly difficult. What is life? Our next guest has been pondering that elusive riddle ever since, to the great benefit of biomedical sciences. Not all the questions she has explored have had the same captivating simplicity as the one her teacher posed. Perhaps not all of you have read her paper showing that the aggregation of Huntington and yeast varies with the length of the polyglutamine expansion and the expression of chaperone proteins. A riveting paper. But scientists around the world know her as a pioneer in the fascinating field of protein folding, the study of how proteins arrange themselves into intricate shapes and therefore determine much of what goes on and what can go wrong inside living cells. Her work has had important implications for understanding diseases like Huntington's disease and Parkinson's, as well as for evolutionary biology and nanotechnology. She is also admired as the past leader of the Whitehead Institute for Biomedical Research here in Cambridge. Educated at Illinois and Harvard, and for years a faculty member at the University of Chicago, she has toiled since 2001 at a technology institute widely regarded as the finest university in East Cambridge. We honor a neighbor whose love of doing science is rivaled only by her ardor for dancing the tango. Susan Lindquist.
Tango and protein folding.
First time we got a little musical piece for one of these honors.
Ingenious in illuminating molecular marvels, intent on alleviating degenerative diseases, she unfolds nature's secrets by unveiling the origami of life. Susan Lee Lindquist, Doctor of Science.
So absolutely beautiful citations. The origami of life. Beautiful.
The relationship of mind and brain, the motivation for altruism, the nature and limits of reason, the requirements of justice and equality. His explorations of fundamental questions like these, dating back to his days as a doctoral student at Harvard, have made our next guest one of the most influential philosophers of modern times. University professor at NYU, he is a scholar of uncommon breadth, whose work ranges from the philosophy of mind to ethical theory to political philosophy and beyond. He is a writer of exceptional clarity, someone who, as one colleague put it, explains vertiginously difficult ideas with great ease. He is a defender of the role of reason and a critic of reductionist thinking, who has shed penetrating light on the essential tension between objective and subjective views of the world. His most famous essay challenged us to consider what is it like to be a bat, and showed why we humans might never really be able to know. While immersed in the most basic questions of his discipline, he has also focused his mind on consequential public matters, such as income taxation, the privacy of public figures, and the role of international institutions in advancing global justice. We honor Thomas Nagel.
Ranging wide across realms of philosophy, delving deep into consciousness and ethics, a perspicacious reader of other minds who helps us understand what we may never understand. Thomas Nagel, Doctor of Laws.
Our next guest has long been a pillar of the Harvard medical community. Scientist, physician, educator, author, institution builder, mentor, and wise advisor. Educated at Harvard College and Harvard Medical School, an intern and resident at the Brigham, he went on to become Chief of Hematology and Oncology at Children's Hospital and the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, two leading Harvard affiliates. He served for a decade as physician-in-chief at Children's, then as president of the Dana-Farber, guiding both of these great institutions through important passages in their history. He has made major contributions to understanding inherited disorders of the blood. He is co-author of the leading textbook on pediatric hematology. He's been an important voice in national discussions of clinical research policy and an extraordinarily devoted mentor to generations of physicians and scientists. He is rightly proud of the high honors conferred on him by the Association of American Physicians, the American Pediatric Society, and the American Society of Hematology, not to mention the National Medal of Science. But he is perhaps proudest of all to claim, at least by his own account, a winning record in his lifetime series of tennis matches against his ferocious opponent and friend, Derek Bach. We salute Dr. David Nathan.
And you can, of course, see his opponent, former professor of president of Harvard, Derek Bach, his escort today, seated directly behind him.
Obviously enjoying the joke.
Yes.
Wise in the ways of blood, compassionate in the care of children, savvy in the guidance of individuals and institutions, devoted to preserving the finest traditions of his calling. David Gordon Nathan, Doctor of Science.
Uh, 30 years ago, our next guest was paraded down Massachusetts Avenue, escorted by grinning men wearing colorful gowns to receive one of Harvard's best-known honors. I stand before you today wearing my own most colorful gown to supplement her treasured hasty pudding pot with a genuine Harvard diploma. Born in New Jersey, she attended Vassar, then studied drama at an obscure university in New Haven, Connecticut, best known for its nearby pizza shops. She did Shakespeare and Brecht in New York and collected an Obie Award off-Broadway before launching what many regard as the greatest film career of her generation. She earned her first Oscar nomination for The Deer Hunter in 1978. She has since earned an incredible 15 more, the most for any actor ever. They go along with her 25 Golden Globe nominations, also the most in history. From her early performances in films like Kramer vs. Kramer and Sophie's Choice, to her uncanny recent portrayal of Cambridge's own Julia Child, she has inhabited an astonishing variety of unforgettable roles with a naturalism and presence, a dignity and depth that have won the admiration of audiences and critics worldwide. Awarding her its Life Achievement Award, the American Film Institute said, "She is like no other. She is authentic yet ethereal, self-possessed yet vulnerable, intellectual yet instinctive. And she combines these disparate qualities in a way that has made her a cinematic icon." Merrily we honor Meryl Streep.
You had dinner with her last night.
She was at the Honorary Degrees dinner. I have to say, my iPhone came in handy.
From Sophie to Silkwood, Miss Julie to Julia Child, an actress of luminous intensity and infinite variety, whose transcendent performances richly merit this Academy's award. Meryl Streep, Doctor of Arts.
Beautiful, this Academy's award. I think there will be, perhaps aside from Justice Souter, this is a popular award across the schools today.
Doctor of Versatility.
Doctor of Versatility, inhabiting so many roles.
Our final guest is no stranger to this yard. He arrived here as a freshman in 1957. He wrote his senior thesis on Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes and graduated in 1961, 100 years after Holmes had. Following a Rhodes Scholarship at Oxford, he came back to Harvard in 1963 to study law. He lived steps from here as a freshman proctor in Strauss Hall. No one in the yard was a better talker, a friend recalls, and no one had more interesting things to say. The same friend recalls him saying, only half in jest, that he intended to go back home to New Hampshire to practice law and raise pigs. He indeed went back home. After 2 years in private practice, he launched a career in public service that now spans more than 4 decades. First as an assistant and then Deputy Attorney General, then as Attorney General of New Hampshire, then as a Superior Court and State Supreme Court Justice. In 1990, he was named to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. Just months later, he was elevated to the nation's highest court, where he served with distinction for nearly 2 decades, until last summer when he decided it was time to go home again. He earned a reputation for intellectual rigor and meticulous preparation, abiding respect for precedent and deep humility, staunch independence, and a devotion to doing justice in each individual case. Nominating him in 1990, President Bush praised his keen intellect and a judicial approach that strikes a wise balance between the theoretical and practical aspects of the law. Marking his retirement from the Supreme Court in 2009, President Obama praised his integrity, equanimity, and compassion, the hallmark of not just being a good judge, but being a good person. We proudly welcome back to this yard the Honorable David Souter.
I was told that this is the only honorary degree he has ever accepted, though I'm sure he's been asked many times. And as a humble footnote, I will say that David Souter is also a member of the Lowell House Senior Common Room and has been throughout his entire sojourn in Washington. He comes occasionally for tea.
Even-handed, even-tempered, ever attentive to the facts of the case, a model of modesty and moderation in society's service, whose independent spirit and intellectual rigor have balanced the scales of justice. David Hackett Souter, Doctor of Laws.
He is escorted by Noah Feldman and Jeannie Suk, sitting right behind him, both of whom are professors at the law school and were clerks in the Supreme Court.
In the name of this Society of Scholars, I declare that these persons are entitled to the rights and privileges pertaining to their several degrees, and that their names are to be forever borne on its roll of honorary members.
Degree candidates and their guests and all alumni are warmly invited to attend the afternoon session of Commencement Day exercises under the direction of the Harvard Alumni Association. The Alumni Parade will begin at 1:45 p.m. and the exercises will begin at 2:30 p.m. The commencement speakers will be the Honorable David H. Souter, former Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, and the President of Harvard University. The commencement choir director will lead us in the singing of the commencement hymn. Following the hymn, the Plummer Professor of Christian Morals will pronounce the benediction. The commencement exercises then being ended, the Sheriff of Middlesex County will declare the meeting adjourned. The audience is requested to remain seated until the President and the Fellows and their guests have withdrawn from the platform.
Send us forth into the world, ready to do as much good as we can. Make us grateful for all the many mercies and blessings which have attended us along the way. And may our hearts and mind be attuned to wisdom and mercy. Make us gentle in all things, but help us to persevere in the search for truth and justice. And above all, help us to be more loving, that the world may see in us something of the love of God. Upon this old college and university, we ask thy blessing. Give grace to those who leave, and strength to those who remain. For all that has been and is to be, we give thee thanks, O God. We rejoice in the promises and pray for a world in which we may prove to be of some useful service. All this we ask in the name of the living and loving God. Amen.
Okay, fine. Ringing of bells throughout Cambridge, bells from the university all over, from the local churches, from the Lowell Bell Tower to the Andover Bell Tower, and here in Harvard Yard. an extraordinary event that begins and ends these festival rites with the sheriff, and then begins and ends with a prayer. I think there's no university in the world that has this kind of extraordinary festivity and at the same time solemnity.
It's remarkable how interesting the mix of pursuits has been, and as we've evolved through the past few years, the way in which these subjects are tied together through the honorary degrees, through the undergraduate oratory. It's a remarkable mix.
Amazing. I thought the same thing this morning. The relation of ethics and medicine with Renee Fox and Tom Nagel with ethics and political theory, and the undergraduate orator, and the way in which our fields and disciplines in this whole university are ever coming closer together and need each other.
And it really matters what's said here. Unlike the distant past, what people see, perceive, and express really makes a difference in the way we view the world and the way these students move out into it.
I think of Drew Faust's inaugural, in which she talked about the essence of a university that is uniquely accountable to the past and to the future, not simply to the present. And it's not about results in the next quarter, though we do worry about that. It's not even about, she said, who a student becomes at graduation, but it is about learning that molds a lifetime and learning that transmits the heritage of the millennia and learning that will shape the future. And as we see these graduates head back to their schools and houses and on to the rest of their lives, this is our hope, learning that shapes the future.
And Diana, seeing you here each year is a great treat, and it's always so much fun.
It's a treat for me too, Jim. We've got the best seats at ringside and the opportunity to participate in some small way in these festival rites.
And I hope you have a wonderful year coming up.
Thank you. You're going to Italy tonight, and I envy you. And I will be at Lowell House again tonight. So thank you very much, and thanks to all of you for viewing with us and participating in these festival rites of commencement.
Schools repair to their areas as the seniors go back to their houses, the alumni stay in the old part of Harvard Yard. Professor Gomes with the main body of faculty, or at least a lot of them. And the alumni are treated to what's called a spread. That's an ancient term for these meals that are laid before them. The alumni have paid for this, as they did not years ago. The band striking up quite fiercely, Harvard by Tom Lehrer, who graduated from Harvard in the 1940s. And he was also a member of this radio station.